When Michael Jordan's private jet crashed in a tiny mountain village during a terrible storm, he thought his life was over. The greatest basketball player in the world was stuck in the middle of nowhere with no phone, no internet, and no way to escape. But in this forgotten place called Pine Creek, MJ discovered something that would change him forever. He met a 12-year-old girl named Kaya, who hadn't spoken a single word in 6 months. Her parents had died in a car crash, and her heart was completely broken. What happened next between this famous athlete and this silent little girl created a miracle that no one saw coming. MJ made a promise that seemed impossible to keep. Kaya found courage she didn't know she had, and together they started something that would help thousands of children around the world. But here's what will shock you most. MJ wasn't just helping Kaya heal from her terrible loss. He was running from a scary secret of his own, something that made him just as frightened and lost as she was. How can a plane crash in the middle of nowhere become the best thing that ever happened to two broken people? And what is the amazing secret that MJ reveals at the end that leaves everyone in the village absolutely stunned? The private jet sliced through the dark Montana sky like a silver arrow. Inside, Michael Jordan sat in his leather seat, staring out the window at the thick forest below. He was supposed to be thinking about his charity event in Seattle tomorrow, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. "We should arrive in about 2 hours, Mr. Jordan," called Captain Rosa Martinez from the cockpit. She had been flying for 15 years and had never lost a passenger. Her voice was calm and professional, just like always. MJ nodded, but didn't answer. He couldn't stop thinking about the phone call from his doctor. 3 weeks ago, the words kept spinning in his head like a broken record. Heart condition, surgery, risk, fear. Outside, storm clouds began rolling in from the west. They looked like giant gray mountains in the sky, growing bigger and darker by the minute. Lightning flickered inside them like camera flashes. "Sir, we might hit some rough weather," Captain Martinez announced. "Please make sure your seatbelt is tight." The plane started to shake. At first, it was just little bumps, like driving over small rocks. Then, the shaking got worse. MJ gripped the armrests of his seat as the aircraft bounced up and down. Thunder crashed all around them. Rain hammered against the windows so hard it sounded like marbles hitting glass. The plane rocked back and forth like a boat on rough water. "This is worse than I thought," Captain Martinez muttered, fighting to control the aircraft. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the steering controls. Suddenly, a bright flash lit up the entire sky. The lightning bolt hit the plane's left engine with a sound like the world's loudest firecracker. Sparks flew everywhere, lighting up the dark clouds around them. Warning alarms started screaming inside the cockpit. Red lights flashed on the control panel like an angry Christmas tree. The smell of burning metal filled the air. "We've been hit," Captain Martinez shouted over the noise. "Engine 1 is dead." The plane tilted to the left, spinning in a slow circle. MJ felt his stomach drop as they began falling toward the earth. Through his window, he could see trees and mountains rushing up to meet them. "We're going down!" Captain Martinez yelled. "I need to find somewhere to land." MJ's heart pounded in his chest. He had faced many challenges in his life, winning championships, dealing with pressure, making impossible shots. But he had never faced anything like this. Captain Martinez scanned the ground below them, looking for any place flat enough to land a plane. All she could see were thick pine trees, steep hills, and rocky cliffs. There was nowhere safe to put the aircraft down. "Come on," she whispered to herself, wiping sweat from her forehead. Then, through the rain and darkness, she spotted something, a small clearing next to what looked like a tiny village. It wasn't much, just a field of tall grass surrounded by trees. But it was their only chance. "Hold on tight," she called to MJ. "This is going to be rough." The plane dropped like a stone toward the clearing. Captain Martinez pulled back on the controls with all her strength, trying to slow their fall. The aircraft's remaining engine screamed as it fought against gravity. They hit the ground hard. The plane bounced once, twice, then slid across the grass field like a giant sled. Dirt and grass flew everywhere. The sound of metal scraping against earth was deafening. Finally, after what felt like forever, the plane came to a stop. Steam rose from the damaged engine. The cabin was filled with smoke, but they were on the ground. They were alive. MJ sat in his seat for a moment, hardly believing they had survived. His expensive suit was wrinkled and torn. His hands were shaking, but he was breathing. "Are you hurt?" Captain Martinez asked, turning around to check on him. She had a small cut on her forehead, but her eyes were bright with relief. "I think I'm okay," MJ said, his voice hoarse from the smoke. They climbed out of the smoking plane into the cool mountain air. MJ looked around at where they had crashed. There was a small village nearby, maybe 20 old wooden houses lined up along a single dirt road. Mountains rose up all around them like giant walls. In the distance, he could see people running toward the crash site. A tall man with gray hair led the group, followed by women, children, and elderly people. They all looked worried and scared. "Wherefore?" The villagers got closer. MJ noticed a small girl hanging back behind the others. She was maybe 12 years old, with long dark hair and sad eyes. She held an old basketball against her chest, watching him with a strange expression on her face. Then she turned and disappeared into the shadows between the houses, leaving MJ wondering who she was and why she looked so broken. The tall man with gray hair reached them first, breathing hard from running across the field. His weathered face showed deep concern as he looked at the smoking plane, then at MJ and Captain Martinez. "Are you both okay?" he asked, his voice gentle but strong. "That was quite a crash. We heard it from the village." "We're alive, thanks to some good flying," MJ said, nodding toward Captain Martinez. "But our plane isn't going anywhere soon." The man extended his hand. "I'm Mayor Elias Crow Feather. Welcome to Pine Creek, though I wish it was under better circumstances." More villagers gathered around them now. An older woman brought blankets. A young man offered bottles of water. Children peeked out from behind their parents, wide-eyed at seeing. Strangers fall from the sky. MJ noticed that none of them seemed to recognize him. His face was covered with soot from the smoke, and his usually perfect appearance was a mess. To these people, he was just a tall man in a torn, expensive suit who had survived a plane crash. "We should get you both to the community center," Mayor Crowfeather said. "Doc Blackwood will want to check you for injuries." They walked along the dirt road toward the village. MJ looked around at the simple wooden houses with front porches and vegetable gardens. Chickens wandered freely in some yards. An old dog barked once, then went back to sleep in the shade. This was a world completely different from his life in Chicago. No skyscrapers, no traffic, no crowds of people asking for autographs. Just quiet homes where families lived simple lives. The community center was a plain building with wooden walls and windows that had no glass, just screens to keep bugs out. Inside, folding chairs sat around simple tables. The walls were decorated with children's drawings and old photographs of the village. "I'm afraid we don't have fancy hotels here," Mayor Crowfeather said apologetically. "But we'll take good care of you." A young woman entered carrying a black medical bag. She had kind eyes and gentle hands, but MJ could tell she was all business when it came to taking care of people. "I'm Dr. Sarah Blackwood," she said, setting down her bag. "Let me check you both for injuries." Dr. Blackwood examined Captain Martinez first, cleaning the cut on her forehead and checking her vision. Then she turned to MJ, looking at his hands and asking him to move his arms and legs. "You're very lucky," she said, as she bandaged a small cut on MJ's arm. "Plane crashes don't usually end this well." "How long before we can get help?" Captain Martinez asked. "My radio is damaged, but I need to contact the airport." Mayor Crowfeather shook his head sadly. "I'm afraid that might take a while. The storm knocked down our phone lines. The mountain roads are washed out from all the rain. Nobody can get in or out for at least 3 days, maybe more." MJ felt his heart sink. 3 days? He had meetings scheduled, endorsement deals to sign, appearances to make. His phone was completely dead, and there was no way to charge it here. "Don't worry," said an elderly woman who had been quietly preparing food. "We'll make sure you're comfortable. I'm Elena Crowfeather, the mayor's sister." She served them bowls of vegetable soup that smelled amazing. The bread was warm and homemade. The water came from a well behind the building and tasted cleaner than any bottled water MJ had ever drunk. As they ate, villagers stopped by to check on them. A teacher named Mrs. Running Bear brought extra clothes. A mechanic named Joe Strongheart looked at photos of the plane damage on Captain Martinez's camera. "Engine's definitely done for," Joe said, shaking his head. "You'll need parts flown in from the city." MJ listened to these people talk about their lives. They discussed their gardens, their children's schoolwork, and plans for the village harvest festival. Nobody talked about stock prices, movie deals, or celebrity gossip. As evening came, Mayor Crowfeather showed MJ to a small room in his house. The bed was simple but clean, covered with quilts that someone had sewn by hand. Through the window, MJ could see more stars than he had ever noticed before. In big cities, bright lights hid the night sky. Here, thousands of stars sparkled like diamonds on black cloth. The silence was complete, except for the sound of wind in the pine trees. MJ lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. When was the last time he had slowed down like this? When had he last had a real conversation with people who didn't want anything from him except basic human kindness? His life was filled with luxury hotels, private jets, and first-class everything. But these people with their simple homes and handmade quilts seemed happier than many rich people he knew. Just as he was falling asleep, he heard a sound outside his window. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Someone was dribbling a basketball. He got up and looked out the window. In the moonlight, he could see the same girl from earlier. She was alone in a small area behind the houses, practicing shots on an old basketball hoop with no net. Her form was perfect. Her shots were smooth and accurate, but even in the dim light, MJ could see tears streaming down her face as she played. Why was she crying? And why was she playing basketball alone in the middle of the night? MJ couldn't sleep after seeing the girl practicing basketball in the moonlight. Her tears and perfect shooting form stayed in his mind all night. When morning came, he found Mayor Crowfeather making coffee in the kitchen. "That girl I saw last night," MJ began carefully. "The one with the basketball. Who is she?" Mayor Crowfeather's face changed. The smile disappeared, and his eyes filled with sadness. He set down his coffee cup and looked out the window toward the mountains. "That's Kaya," he said softly. "She's my great-niece, 12 years old, and the most heartbroken child you'll ever meet." "What happened to her?" MJ asked, though he was almost afraid to hear the answer. The mayor sat down heavily at the kitchen table. 6 months ago, Kaya's parents were driving to the city to buy her birthday present. It was snowing hard, and the mountain roads were icy. Their car slid off the road and... He didn't need to finish. MJ understood. "She hasn't spoken a single word since the day we told her what happened," Mayor Crowfeather continued. "Not one word in 6 months. The doctors say there's nothing wrong with her voice. Her heart is just too broken to let the words out." MJ felt his chest tighten. He had never lost anyone close to him like that. He couldn't imagine the pain this little girl was carrying around. "Who takes care of her now?" "My sister Elena. You met her yesterday. She's the one who made the soup." Elena loves Kaya like her own daughter, but nothing she does seems to help. Kaya just exists. She goes through the motions of living, but the light in her eyes is gone. After breakfast, MJ walked through the village with Dr. Blackwood. She was checking on elderly residents and seemed to know everyone by name. As they walked, she told him more about Kaya's story. Before the accident, Kaya was the happiest child in Pine Creek, Dr. Blackwood explained. She was always laughing, always talking, always moving, and she was amazing at basketball. They stopped in front of the village school, a small building with just 2 classrooms. Behind it was a concrete area with an old basketball hoop. The rim was rusty, and there was no net hanging from it. "Kaya was the star player on our little basketball team," Dr. Blackwood continued. "We only have 8 kids in the whole school, but she could outplay children twice her age. High school, coaches from the city had already started asking about her." MJ studied the broken-down court. The concrete was cracked, and weeds grew through the gaps, but he could imagine a young girl here, full of life and dreams, practicing for hours every day. Her father, David, taught her everything about basketball, Dr. Blackwood said. Every evening after school, they would come here and practice together. He used to say that Kaya had magic in her hands. "What about college?" MJ asked. "Did she have plans?" David and Maria. That was her mother. They both believed education was the most important thing in the world. They were saving every penny so Kaya could go to college. She was going to be the first person in our family to get a university degree. Dr. Blackwood pointed to the mountains surrounding the village. "Most kids here never leave Pine Creek. There aren't many opportunities, but Kaya, she had the talent and the grades to go anywhere she wanted. Basketball was going to be her ticket to a better life." They continued walking, and Dr. Blackwood showed MJ the small clinic where she worked. It had basic equipment, but nothing fancy. She explained how she had given up a job at a big hospital in Denver to come help the people of Pine Creek. "Why did you leave the city?" MJ asked. "Same reason you probably will understand someday," she said with a knowing smile. "Sometimes, helping one person who really needs you is worth more than helping 100 people who already have everything they need. As they walked back toward the mayor's house, MJ saw Kaya in the distance. She was helping her grandmother hang clothes on a line to dry. Even from far away, he could see how small and fragile she looked. She used to fill this whole village with her laughter, Dr. Blackwood said quietly. Now, the silence around her breaks everyone's hearts. That afternoon, Elena Crow Feather invited MJ to help her in the garden behind her house. As they picked vegetables for dinner, she told him more about Kaya's parents. David was a teacher. At our school, Elena said, pulling carrots from the rich soil, Maria taught the younger children to read. They were the most loving parents you could imagine. Everything they did was for Kaya's future. She showed MJ a small wooden box filled with old photographs, pictures of Kaya as a little girl, always smiling, always holding a basketball, pictures of her parents cheering at her games, pride shining in their faces. This was taken on her 11th birthday, Elena said, pointing to a photo of Kaya blowing out candles on a cake. 3 weeks before the accident. Look how happy she was. In the photo, Kaya's smile was so bright it seemed to light up the whole picture. Her parents stood behind her, their hands on her shoulders, looking like the happiest family in the world. I need you to keep hoping she'll smile like that again someday, Elena whispered, but I don't know how to help her heal. As evening approached, MJ found himself watching for Kaya to appear with her basketball. Sure enough, as the sun set behind the mountains, he saw her slip out of her grandmother's house carrying the old worn ball. This time, he decided to get closer. He quietly walked to where he could see the makeshift court better. Kaya was there, alone in the growing darkness, shooting basket after basket, with perfect form. But she wasn't just practicing. She was crying again, tears streaming down her face as she played. Every shot she made seemed to bring more sadness instead of joy. MJ could see something written on the basketball in fading letters. When Kaya turned the ball toward the moonlight, he could make out the words, "For Kaya, love, Dad." His heart broke watching this talented, heartbroken girl playing the sport her father had taught. Her using the ball he had given her, crying for the parents who would never see her play again. That's when MJ made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Tomorrow, he was going to try something that might help Kaya, or might make everything worse. The next morning, MJ woke up with butterflies in his stomach. He had faced pressure in championship games, but this felt different. This wasn't about winning or losing a game. This was about trying to reach a broken little girl's heart. After breakfast, he asked Mayor Crow Feather if he could borrow some old clothes. His expensive suit was torn and dirty from the crash, and he wanted to look more like a regular person. "Of course," the mayor said, bringing him a simple shirt and jeans that belonged to his son. "May I ask what you're planning?" "I'm going to try to help Kaya," MJ said honestly. "I have an idea, but I'm not sure it will work." Mayor Crow Feather studied MJ's face carefully. "She's been hurt so badly. Please be gentle with her heart." "I will," MJ promised. That afternoon, MJ walked to the broken-down basketball court behind the school. He picked up an old basketball that was sitting in the weeds. Not Kaya's special ball, just one the school kids used during the day. It was losing air and felt lumpy in his hands. Then he started shooting baskets, but not the way Michael Jordan normally shot baskets. He missed badly. His first shot bounced off the rim and flew over the fence. His second shot didn't even reach the hoop. His third shot hit the side of the backboard, and bounced into the weeds. MJ, who had made thousands of perfect shots in NBA games, was deliberately shooting like someone who had never played basketball before. But he made it look natural, like he was really trying his best and just wasn't very good. Word spread quickly through the small village. Mrs. Running Bear noticed him from the school window and told Elena Crowfeather. Elena told Dr. Blackwood. Soon, people were peeking out of their houses to watch the tall stranger struggling to make simple shots. MJ kept playing terribly. He missed layups that any child could make. He dribbled the ball off his foot. He even tripped over his own feet once, which made some of the village children giggle. But he knew Kaya was watching. He could feel her eyes on him from her grandmother's kitchen window. He just hoped his plan would work. As the sun began to set, MJ continued his awful basketball performance. He was sweating from trying so hard to look bad while actually being one of the greatest players who ever lived. Finally, just as he had hoped, Kaya appeared. She didn't come close to the court. She stood about 20 feet away, hiding partially behind a wooden fence. Her arms were crossed, and even from a distance, MJ could see frustration on her face. He continued shooting and missing, making increasingly worse attempts. One shot went so far to the left that it nearly hit a chicken wandering nearby. Kaya took a step closer, clearly bothered by his terrible form. MJ pretended not to notice her. He lined up another shot, bent his knees all wrong, and threw the ball with awful technique. It bounced off the front of the rim and rolled toward Kaya's feet. She looked down at the ball, then up at MJ. Without thinking, she picked it up automatically. For just a moment, her natural basketball instincts took over. Her hands found the perfect grip. Her stance showed perfect balance. Then she realized what she was doing and quickly set the ball down, stepping back like it had burned her. "Thanks," MJ called out gently, walking over to get the ball. "This is harder than it looks." Kaya just stared at him with those sad, dark eyes. MJ picked up the ball and studied it like he was trying to figure out some great mystery. "I've been watching you practice at night. Your shooting form looks a lot better than mine." Kaya's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't known anyone was watching her midnight sessions. "Maybe you could show me how it's done," MJ asked hopefully. Kaya shook her head quickly and started to walk away. But MJ tried a different approach, one that he hoped might spark the competitive fire he had seen in her eyes. "I bet you think you're better than me at basketball," he said with a playful challenge in his voice. "But you're probably too scared to prove it." This stopped Kaya dead in her tracks. She turned around slowly, and for the first time since MJ had arrived in Pine Creek, he saw real fire in her eyes. Not sadness, not emptiness, anger and pride. She glared at him for a long moment, her small hands clenched into fists. "How about this?" MJ continued, keeping his voice casual. "Tomorrow evening, just you and me. A little shooting contest. Nothing fancy. Just see who can make more shots." Kaya continued staring at him, her jaw set with determination. "If you win," MJ said, "I'll give you something special. Something that will help you remember how good you really are at basketball." He paused, then added the part that he hoped would seal the deal. "But if I win, which I probably won't, you have to do something for me. You have to say one word to your grandmother. Just one word. Deal?" Kaya's eyes filled with conflict. MJ could see her mind racing. She wanted to prove she was better than this clumsy stranger, but speaking to her grandmother felt impossible after 6 months of silence. Finally, slowly, she nodded her head. "Yes, great," MJ said with a smile. "Tomorrow night, right here. May the best player win." As Kaya walked back toward her grandmother's house, word of the challenge spread through Pine Creek like wildfire. By dinnertime, everyone in the village knew about the shooting contest. Between the tall stranger and their beloved but broken little girl. Dr. Blackwood pulled MJ aside after dinner. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, worry clear in her voice. "Kaya is so fragile right now. If something goes wrong, if she gets upset or feels embarrassed." "I understand the risk," MJ said, "but she needs something to fight for. She needs to remember that she's still alive, still talented, still worth something." "What if she actually beats you?" Dr. Blackwood asked. "What's this special something you promised to give her?" MJ smiled mysteriously. "Let's just say it's something that means a lot to me. Something that represents never giving up, even when things seem impossible." That night, as MJ lay in bed, he could hear Kaya outside practicing again. But tonight was different. She wasn't crying. She was focused, determined, preparing for their contest. Her shots were perfect, one after another. Swish, swish, swish. MJ suddenly realized he might have made a terrible mistake. What if Kaya was actually good enough to beat him, even when he was trying his hardest? And more importantly, what would happen to her fragile heart if she lost? Tomorrow night? The next evening, the entire village of Pine Creek gathered around the broken basketball court. Word had spread to every house, every family. Even people from neighboring farms came to watch the shooting contest between the mysterious stranger and their beloved Kaya. MJ had never played basketball in front of such a small crowd, but somehow it felt more important than any NBA game he had ever played. Children sat on their parents' shoulders. Elderly people brought folding chairs. Teenagers stood on fence posts to get better views. Mayor Crow Feather walked to the center of the court carrying a clipboard. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "tonight we have a friendly shooting contest, 10 shots each, from different spots around the court. Most shots made wins." MJ looked around at all the hopeful faces. These people weren't just watching a basketball game. They were praying for a miracle, hoping to see their broken little girl come back to life. Dr. Blackwood stood near the sideline, her medical bag ready just in case. Elena Crow Feather clutched a handkerchief in her hands, tears already forming in her eyes. Mrs. Running Bear whispered what looked like a prayer. Then Kaya appeared. She walked slowly from her grandmother's house, wearing her father's old basketball jersey. It was way too big for her small frame, hanging down almost to her knees. But she wore it proudly, like armor going into battle. Her long dark hair was pulled back in a ponytail. For the first time since MJ had arrived in Pine Creek, her eyes showed something other than sadness. They showed determination. MJ had changed from the mayor's borrowed clothes back into his own outfit. Simple pants and a plain shirt. He looked nervous, which surprised some of the villagers. How could a grown man be worried about playing basketball with a 12-year-old girl? "Ladies first," MJ said, gesturing toward the free throw line. Kaya stepped up to the shooting spot. The crowd fell completely silent. Even the wind seemed to stop blowing. Everyone held their breath. She bounced the ball 3 times, the same ritual her father had taught her years ago. She bent her knees, brought the ball up in perfect form, and released it with a smooth, confident. motion. Swish. The ball went through the rusty rim without even touching the metal. Perfect shot. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Children jumped up and down. Adults hugged each other. Elena Crowfeather covered her mouth with her hands, crying happy tears. Kaya almost smiled. Almost. But not quite. MJ stepped up for his turn. He could easily make this shot with his eyes closed, but he had to stick to his plan. He deliberately shot too hard, and the ball bounced off the back of the rim. The villagers gasped. Some shook their heads sympathetically. Dr. Blackwood wondered if this strange man really knew what he was doing. Shot after shot, the pattern continued. Kaya played beautifully, making difficult shots look easy. Her form was textbook perfect. Every movement showed years of loving instruction from her father. Meanwhile, MJ continued to struggle, missing shots that any decent player should make. He made some shots. He had to, or it would look too fake. But he missed more than he made. By the 8th shot, Kaya had made 7 baskets. MJ had only made 3. The contest seemed almost over. But something magical was happening that was more important than the score. As Kaya prepared for her 9th shot, she looked around at the crowd of neighbors who had watched her grow up. She saw Mrs. Running Bear, who had spent extra time teaching her math when she struggled. She saw Joe Strongheart, who had fixed her bicycle for free when she was 8. She saw Dr. Blackwood, who had held her hand during the worst days after her parents died. These people had been bringing food to her grandmother for months. They had helped with chores without being asked. They had given her space to grieve, while never giving up hope that she would heal. For the first time in 6 months, Kaya felt something other than sadness and loss. She felt connected to her community again. She felt loved. She made her 9th shot easily, a beautiful arc that dropped through the rim without touching anything. The crowd went wild with celebration. MJ stepped up for his 9th shot. He could easily make this one and several more to tie or even win the contest. But as he looked at Kaya's face, seeing the first spark of real joy she had shown in months, he realized something important. Winning had never been the point. He missed the shot on purpose, bouncing it gently off the rim. "Looks like you're going to beat me," he said to Kaya with a genuine smile. "You're really good at this." Kaya prepared for her final shot. If she made it, she would win 8-4. The entire village held its breath. This was about more than basketball now. This was about whether their beloved girl could find her way back to believing in herself. She dribbled the ball once, twice, 3 times. She looked at the rim, then at her grandmother, then at all the faces surrounding the court. Just as she was about to shoot, she stopped. She turned to look directly at MJ with curious, intelligent eyes. Something about his reaction to losing, something about the way he moved when he thought no one was watching, made her suspicious. "You're not really bad at basketball, are you?" she asked quietly. The crowd gasped, not just because she had spoken her first words in 6 months, but because her question showed how smart she was. MJ looked into those dark eyes and saw that she had figured out his secret. There was no point in lying anymore. "No," he admitted. "I'm not bad at basketball." "Then who are you really?" Kaya asked, her voice getting stronger. MJ took a deep breath. The moment of truth had arrived sooner than he expected. "My name is Michael Jordan," he said simply. The entire village fell completely silent. Then everyone started talking at once. Some people didn't believe it. Others pulled out old magazines and newspapers, comparing the photos to the man standing on their basketball court. "The Michael Jordan?" Mayor Crowfeather asked, amazed. MJ nodded. "I was trying to help without all the attention that usually comes with being me." But Kaya wasn't starstruck like everyone expected. Instead, she looked hurt and angry. "You lied to me," she said, her voice breaking. "You pretended to be bad, so I would think I was beating the greatest basketball player ever. But it was all fake." Her words hit MJ harder than any criticism from sports reporters ever had. In trying to help her, he had broken the trust she was just beginning to build with the world again. "You're right," he said honestly. "I did lie about my basketball skills, but I didn't lie about wanting to help you. And I didn't lie about being impressed by your talent." Kaya's eyes filled with tears. "My talent doesn't matter anymore. My parents are gone. They were the only ones who cared about my dreams." The crowd watched this emotional exchange, many people wiping away their own tears. They had all been hoping and praying for Kaya to heal, but they were seeing how deep her pain really went. MJ knelt down to Kaya's eye level, looking directly into her sad, angry eyes. "Can I tell you something about dreams?" he asked gently. "The best dreams don't belong to just one person. Your parents gave you the gift of loving basketball, but that gift is still yours. It doesn't die when people die." He gestured to the crowd of villagers surrounding them. "Look around. Do you see how happy these people are just because you made a few basketball shots? Do you see how proud they are of you? Your dreams matter to all of them now." Kaya looked at the faces around the court. Elena was crying with joy. Mayor Crowfeather had his hands clasped together like he was praying. The children were staring at her with pure admiration. "But I miss them so much," she whispered. "I know you do," MJ said softly. "Missing them means you loved them. But giving up on everything they taught you doesn't honor their memory. Playing basketball, being brave, chasing your dreams, that's how you keep them alive in your heart." Kaya wiped her eyes and looked down at the basketball in her hands, the one with her father's name written on it in fading ink. "Will you show me?" she asked MJ quietly. "Will you show me how good I could really be?" MJ smiled and stood up. "I'd be honored to. But first, I have something to tell everyone. Something that I think will surprise you all." MJ looked around at all the faces staring at him in the fading evening light. The villagers were still processing the fact that Michael Jordan, the Michael Jordan, was standing on their broken basketball court in the middle of nowhere. "3 weeks ago," MJ began, his voice carrying clearly in the mountain air, "I got a phone call that changed everything for me." The crowd grew completely quiet. Even the children stopped fidgeting. "My doctor told me they found something wrong with my heart. Not life-threatening, but serious. Enough that I might need surgery. For the first time in my life, I felt scared. Really scared." Dr. Blackwood stepped forward slightly, her medical training making her pay close attention to every word. "I've always been someone who faces challenges head-on," MJ continued, "but this time, I panicked. I jumped on my private jet without even knowing where I wanted to go. I just told Captain Martinez to fly somewhere quiet, somewhere no one would find me while I figured out what to do." Elena Crowfeather reached out and gently touched his arm. "And instead of finding a place to hide, you found us." "I found all of you," MJ agreed, "but especially Kaya. Watching her struggle with losing her parents made me realize something important. I was so afraid of maybe getting sick that I forgot about all the healthy days I still have left." Kaya nodded, understanding better than most adults how fear could freeze someone in place. "When you lost your parents," MJ said, looking directly at her, "you stopped playing basketball because it reminded you of them. When I got scared about my health, I stopped doing the things that make me happy. We were both letting fear win." "But you're not scared anymore?" Kaya asked, her voice still quiet but growing stronger. "I'm still scared," MJ admitted honestly, "but I learned something from watching you tonight. Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do the right thing even when you are afraid." Mayor Crow Feather spoke up. "Sometimes when we think we're helping others, we're really healing ourselves." "Exactly," MJ said. "I thought I was here to help Kaya, but she helped me remember who I want to be. Someone who faces problems with courage, not fear." The village was quiet as everyone absorbed this revelation. Then Dr. Blackwood asked the question on everyone's mind. "Have you talked to your doctors about treatment options?" "Not yet," MJ said. "I was too scared to hear what they might say." But watching Kaya find the courage to speak again, to play basketball again, to trust people again, it showed me that I need to face my problems instead of running from them. He pulled out his satellite phone, the only phone that worked in the remote mountains. "Tomorrow morning, I'm going to call my doctors. I'm going to schedule whatever surgery or treatment I need. And I'm going to do it with the courage this little girl showed me." The crowd murmured approval. Several people wiped tears from their eyes. But MJ wasn't done with his surprises. "There's something else," he said. "Something I've been thinking about since I crashed here 3 days ago." He walked over to where Kaya stood holding her father's basketball. "Kaya, you asked me to show you how good you could really be at basketball. But what if I told you I want to do more than just give you a few lessons?" Everyone leaned forward, curious about what he meant. "What if I told you I want to start a new program, the Jordan Foundation Scholarship for Rural Athletes? And what if I told you that you're going to be the very first scholarship recipient?" Kaya's eyes grew wide. Elena Crow Feather gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. "The scholarship covers everything," MJ explained. "Professional basketball, training, academic, tutoring, and eventually a full college scholarship to any university you want to attend." The crowd erupted in excited chatter. This was more than anyone had ever dreamed possible. But Elena looked worried. "This sounds wonderful, Michael. But Kaya is still healing. She needs stability and family support." MJ had expected this concern. "The program doesn't take her away from Pine Creek. We bring the training here. I'm going to build a proper basketball court for the village, with lights for evening practice, a small indoor gym for winter, and equipment that actually works." Mayor Crow Feather could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You would do all that for our little village?" "Professional coaches will come here every month to work with Kaya and any other kids who want to learn," MJ continued. "But Pine Creek will always be her home base. She'll grow up here, surrounded by people who love her." Mrs. Running Bear stepped forward from the crowd. "What about school? Our little school is fine for basic education. But if Kaya is going to college?" "The scholarship includes the best tutors available," MJ said. "She'll get a world-class education right here in Pine Creek. When she's ready for college, she'll be prepared for anywhere she wants to go." Dr. Blackwood shook her head in amazement. "What made you decide to do this? You could help kids anywhere in the world." MJ looked around at all the kind faces surrounding him. Pine Creek gave me something I needed, too. You reminded me why basketball matters. It's not about fame or money. It's about bringing people together and helping each other be better than we thought we could be. He knelt down in front of Kaya again. But there's one condition to this scholarship. Everyone held their breath, wondering what it could be. You have to promise me that when you finish college, you'll come back to Pine Creek and help. Other kids follow their dreams too. Will you be the coach who teaches the next generation? Kaya's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were happy tears. You mean, I could come back home after college? I could teach basketball to kids the way my dad taught me? That's exactly what I mean, MJ said. Your parents wanted you to get a good education. They wanted you to have opportunities, but they also wanted you to remember where you came from and help your community. Elena Crow Feather stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. David and Maria would be so proud, she whispered. Kaya looked around at all the faces, the mayor, the doctor, her teacher, her neighbors, and friends. These people had supported her through the darkest time of her life. Now, they were celebrating a future brighter than anyone had ever imagined. Yes, she said firmly, her voice strong and clear. I promise to come back and help other kids, just like you helped me. MJ stood up and shook her hand like she was signing a professional contract. Then we have a deal. But he still had one more surprise, the biggest one of all. Kaya, he said, reaching into his pocket, I promised you something special if you won our contest. You definitely won. Not just the basketball game, but something much more important. He pulled out a small box and opened it carefully. Inside was one of his 6 NBA championship rings, the golden ring that represented years of hard work, dedication, and never giving up. The entire crowd gasped as he placed it in Kaya's small hands. This isn't a gift, he explained, as everyone stared in shock. It's a loan. I want you to keep it. While you're working toward your dreams, when you graduate from college and come back to coach your first group of kids, you can give it back to me. Kaya stared at the ring, knowing she was holding one of the most precious items in sports history. But what if I lose it? She asked, worried. You won't, MJ said with complete confidence. Champions don't lose the things that matter most. And you, Kaya, are definitely a champion. As the crowd cheered and cried happy tears, Kaya looked up at MJ with wonder in her eyes. Why? She asked simply. Why are you doing all this for me? MJ smiled and looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Because sometimes, he said, the most important victories happen in the smallest places. And because you taught me that real champions aren't just the ones who win games. They're the ones who keep playing even when life breaks their heart. As the crowd slowly began to break up, people hugging and wiping happy tears from their eyes, MJ picked up the old basketball that had been forgotten on the court. He held it out to Kaya. How about we start your real training right now? He asked with a smile. Kaya nodded eagerly, still clutching his championship ring carefully in her other hand. What happened next was something no one in Pine Creek would ever forget. Under the stars and the light of a few lanterns that villagers had brought, Michael Jordan gave Kaya a private basketball lesson that was worth more than any amount of money. He showed her advanced shooting techniques that only professional players usually learned. He demonstrated proper footwork for driving to the basket, defensive positioning, and how to read what other players were thinking. "Your basic skills are already excellent," he told her as the amazed crowd watched. "Your father taught you incredibly well, but let me show you some things that could take you to the next level." For over an hour, MJ worked with Kaya on the broken concrete court. She learned quickly, her natural talent shining even brighter with professional guidance. The rusty rim and cracked. Surface didn't matter. This was pure basketball education from the greatest player who ever lived. As they practiced, something magical happened. Kaya began to smile. Not just small, careful smiles, but real joy spreading across her face like sunshine after a storm. She was remembering why she had fallen in love with basketball in the first place. "My dad always said I had magic in my hands," she told MJ between practice shots. "He was absolutely right," MJ replied, watching her sink another perfect shot. "But magic only works if you believe in it." Dr. Blackwood stood with Elena, both women crying happy tears as they watched Kaya come alive again. "Look at her," Dr. Blackwood whispered. "She's not the same broken little girl who wouldn't speak this morning." "David and Maria can see this," Elena said softly. "I know they can. They're so proud of their little girl right now." As the lesson continued, more villagers drifted back to watch. Children sat on the ground in amazement. Teenagers took mental notes, hoping to learn something they could use in their own games. Even elderly people who had never played basketball found themselves fascinated by the beauty of perfect technique. MJ taught Kaya how to use her smaller size as an advantage. He showed her moves that would help her play against bigger, stronger opponents. Most importantly, he taught her how to think like a champion. "Basketball isn't just about making shots," he explained. "It's about understanding the game like music. You have to know when to be fast and when to be patient, when to take risks, and when to play it safe." Kaya nodded seriously, absorbing every word like she was in the most important class of her life. "The BB Tour best players," MJ continued, "don't just react to what's happening. They see what's going to happen before it does." To demonstrate, he set up a practice situation where Kaya had to decide whether to shoot or pass an imaginary ball to an imaginary teammate. Her basketball intelligence impressed him even more than her shooting skills. "You have something special that can't be taught," he told her. "You see the game differently than other players. That's a gift that will take you as far as you want to go." As the impromptu lesson wound down, Mayor Crow Feather approached them. "Michael," he said, "I've been thinking about what you said earlier, about building a basketball court and bringing coaches here regularly. That's an incredible gift, but why? Why would you do so much for strangers?" MJ sat down on the concrete court, and Kaya sat beside him. The remaining villagers gathered closer, sensing they were about to hear something important. "A few days ago, I thought I had everything," MJ began. "Money, fame, 6 championship rings, a place in the Basketball Hall of Fame. But when I got scared about my health, none of that mattered. I felt completely alone." He looked around at the simple houses and the faces of people who had welcomed him without knowing who he was. "You all gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Genuine, human kindness without wanting anything in return. Elena fed me homemade soup. Dr. Blackwood took care of my injuries. The mayor gave me a place to sleep. None of you asked for autographs or pictures or favors." Captain Martinez, who had been quietly listening from the edge of the crowd, stepped forward. "I've flown Mr. Jordan to many places over the years. I've never seen him this relaxed, this happy." That's because this is the first place in a long time where I was treated like a person, instead of a celebrity, MJ said. And watching Kaya fight through her pain reminded me what real strength looks like. He stood up and offered Kaya his hand to help her up. But there's more to this story. Something I haven't told you yet. The villagers looked at each other curiously. What more could there be? Tomorrow morning, Captain Martinez and I have to leave Pine Creek. A rescue helicopter is coming to take us back to civilization. But before I go, I want to make you all a promise. MJ pulled out his satellite phone and dialed a number. As TV, everyone watched. He had a conversation with someone who was clearly his assistant. I need you to contact the best construction company in Montana, he said into the phone. I want to build a basketball facility in a place called Pine Creek. Money is no object. I want it to be perfect. He paused, listening to the person on the other end. No, this isn't for publicity. This is personal. Very personal. After he hung up, he turned back to the crowd. Construction will begin next month. The new basketball court will be called the David and Maria Memorial Court, in honor of Kaya's parents. It will have proper lighting, indoor and outdoor courts, and equipment that actually works. Elena burst into fresh tears. The idea that her son and daughter-in-law would be remembered this way was almost too wonderful to believe. But that's not all, MJ continued. Captain Martinez and I have been talking. She's agreed to start a regular flying service connecting Pine Creek to the outside world. Medical emergencies, school trips, family visits, whatever you need. Captain Martinez nodded. This village saved our lives. Now we want to help improve yours. Dr. Blackwood wiped tears from her eyes. Better transportation meant she could get patients to bigger hospitals faster and bring in medical supplies more easily. The Jordan Foundation is also expanding beyond just Kaya, MJ announced. We're creating scholarship opportunities for every child in Pine Creek who wants to pursue higher education, college, trade school, whatever their dreams require. The parents in the crowd could hardly believe what they were hearing. Their children would have opportunities they had never imagined possible. MJ knelt down in front of Kaya one more time. In 1 week, the first professional coach will arrive to begin working with you. Her name is Coach Jennifer White. She played in the WNBA and now trains young athletes. She'll come once a month until you're ready for more intensive training. Kaya's eyes were shining with excitement and possibility. When will I know if I'm good enough for college? You're already good enough, MJ said with certainty. The question isn't whether you can get a scholarship. The question is which scholarship you'll choose when colleges start competing for you. As the evening finally came to an end and people began heading home, Kaya walked with MJ Doe toward the mayor's house, where he would spend his last night in Pine Creek. Michael, she said quietly, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you still scared about your heart surgery? MJ thought about this carefully. Yes, I'm still scared. But now I'm excited too. I want to get healthy, so I can come back here and see how amazing you've become. Will you really come back? Kaya asked. Even after you're famous again and busy with important things? MJ stopped walking and looked down at this remarkable little girl who had changed his life in just 3 days. Kaya, I want you to understand something. You and Pine Creek aren't distractions from important things. You are the important things. You reminded me what really matters in life. He pointed to the championship ring hanging around her neck on a chain. That ring represents 6 years of my life, when I thought winning basketball games was the most important thing in the world. But helping you remember how to dream again? That's worth more than all 6 championships combined. As they reached the mayor's house, Kaya had one more question. What happens tomorrow when you leave? Will everything go back to being sad and quiet? MJ smiled and looked up at the stars one more time. No, Kaya. Tomorrow is when your real story begins. The plane crash was just the prologue. Everything that happens next, the training, the education, the college scholarship, the kids you'll coach someday, that's the real adventure. He opened the door to go inside, then turned back to her. And I have a feeling it's going to be the greatest story ever told. The next morning came too quickly. MJ woke up to the sound of helicopter blades cutting through the mountain air. Through his window, he could see the rescue helicopter landing in the same field where his plane had crashed 3 days earlier. He packed his few belongings slowly, not wanting this moment to end. The simple room with handmade quilts had become more of a home to him than his mansion in Chicago ever felt. Elena Crowfeather knocked softly on his door. "Breakfast is ready," she said, "and the whole village wants to say goodbye." When MJ walked outside, he was amazed to see that every single person in Pine Creek had gathered to see him off. Children who barely knew his name 3 days ago now hugged him like family. Adults who had never traveled more than 50 miles from home talked with him like an old friend. Dr. Blackwood pulled him aside first. "You know, when you first crashed here, I thought you were just another rich person who would look down on our simple way of life." "What changed your mind?" MJ asked. "You did," she said with a warm smile. "You showed us that greatness isn't about how much money you have or how famous you are. It's about how you treat people when nobody important is watching." Mayor Crowfeather presented MJ with a special gift, a handmade dream catcher created by Elena's skillful hands. The intricate web was decorated with feathers and beads that sparkled in the morning sunlight. "This is to catch good dreams and let the bad ones slip away," the mayor explained. "May it remind you of your time with us and bring you peaceful sleep." MJ accepted the gift with genuine gratitude. "I'll treasure this always." Mrs. Running Bear stepped forward with the 8 children from the village school. Each child had drawn him a picture or written him a letter. The artwork showed stick figures playing, basketball, airplanes in the sky, and hearts with "thank you" written inside. "These are from all of us," she said, "to remember that you'll always have a family here in Pine Creek." Captain Martinez checked her watch. "We should start heading to the helicopter soon," she said, gently. "Weather conditions are perfect right now, but that could change." As they walked toward the field, more villagers joined the farewell procession. Joe Strongheart shook MJ's hand and promised to help with construction when the new basketball court was built. The elderly woman who had brought blankets the first night blessed him in the traditional Native American language. But as they reached the helicopter, Kaya appeared. She had been quiet all morning, and MJ could see that saying goodbye was hard for her. She was wearing her father's basketball jersey. Again? And carrying the worn basketball with his name on it. "I have something for you too," she said, reaching into her pocket. She pulled out a small piece of paper, folded carefully. When MJ opened it, he found a pencil, drawing of the 2 of them playing basketball under the stars. The artwork wasn't perfect, but it captured the emotion of that magical night perfectly. "It's beautiful," MJ said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll keep this forever." "Michael," Kaya said, raising her hand like she was in school again. "Can I ask you something important before you go?" MJ nodded, curious about what was on her mind. "Why were you really flying over Pine Creek that night? Seattle is far away, but your plane was flying right over our village when it crashed. That seems like it was supposed to happen." The T-Dirbo crowd murmured in agreement. Several people had wondered about this, but hadn't wanted to ask. Pine Creek was in the middle of nowhere, not on any normal flight path between major cities. MJ looked at this incredibly smart 12-year-old and realized he couldn't avoid the truth any longer. She deserved to know the whole story. He took a deep breath and looked up at the clear blue sky. "You're absolutely right to ask that question," he said. "I wasn't just flying to a charity event in Seattle. I was running away." This confession surprised everyone, especially Dr. Blackwood, who could tell there was more to the story. "Running away from what?" Kaya asked gently. MJ sat down on a large rock near the helicopter, and Kaya sat beside him. The rest of the village gathered closer, sensing they were about to hear something very important. "3 weeks ago, I got news that scared me more than anything ever had," MJ began. "The doctors found something wrong with my heart. Not immediately dangerous, but serious enough that I might need surgery." He paused, looking at the faces around him, people who had become like family in just 3 days. "I've always been someone who attacks problems head-on, in basketball, in business, in life. But this time, I panicked. I felt helpless and afraid. So I did something I'd never done before. I run." Elena Crow Feather reached out and gently touched his shoulder. "And instead of finding a place to hide, you found us." "I found all of you," MJ agreed. "I told Captain Martinez to just fly somewhere quiet, somewhere remote, where no one would think to look for me. I didn't care where we went. I just wanted to disappear until I figured out how to deal with my fear." Kaya nodded wisely, understanding better than most adults how fear could make someone want to hide from the world. "When we crashed here," MJ continued, "I thought it was the worst possible thing that could happen. I was angry and frustrated. But now I know it was exactly what I needed." "How?" asked Dr. Blackwood. "What changed?" MJ looked directly at Kaya. "Watching you struggle with losing your parents made me realize something crucial. I was so afraid of maybe getting sick that I had stopped living. I was wasting all my healthy days worrying about days that might never come." "But you're not scared anymore?" Kaya asked. "I'm still scared," MJ admitted honestly. "The surgery is still scary. The unknown is still frightening. But I learned something from you, Kaya. Being brave doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do what needs to be done, even when you are afraid." Mayor Crow Feather spoke up. "Sometimes when we think we're helping others, we discover that we're the ones being helped." "Exactly," MJ said. "I thought I came here to help Kaya find her voice and her dreams again. But she helped me find my courage. She showed me that real champions face their problems instead of running from them." The village fell quiet as everyone absorbed this revelation. The idea that someone as successful as Michael Jordan could be scared and lost made him seem more human, more like them. Then Kaya did something that surprised everyone, including herself. She stood up and took MJ's hand. "Want to shoot some baskets one more time before you go?" she asked. "My dad always said, basketball helps you think more clearly." MJ looked at her small hand holding his and felt his heart fill with gratitude and love for this remarkable little girl. "I'd like that very much," he said. They walked to the broken basketball court one last time as MJ and Kaya began shooting. Baskets. In the morning sunlight, something beautiful happened that no one had expected. The entire village joined them. Mayor Crowfeather grabbed a ball and started shooting from the corner. Dr. Blackwood surprised everyone by making 3 shots in tirete. A row. Elena cheered from the sidelines while Mrs. Running Bear coached the younger children. What followed was the most joyful basketball game anyone in Pine Creek had ever experienced. It wasn't about competition or winning. It was about community, love, and celebration. As they played, MJ realized something profound. This broken court, with its rusty rim, was producing more pure happiness than any professional arena he had ever played in. These people, who had so little in terms of money and possessions, were rich in the things that truly mattered: love, community, and the ability to find joy in simple moments. The game ended when Captain Martinez gently reminded them that they really did need to leave. As the laughter died down and reality set in, MJ knew this was the hardest goodbye he had ever had to make. He gathered everyone in a circle for one final moment together. "I want you all to know," he said, "that these 3 days have changed my life forever. You saved me in ways that have nothing to do with the plane crash. You reminded me what really matters." "What really matters?" asked one of the school children. MJ looked around the circle at all the faces, young and old, hopeful and wise. "Family," he said. "Community. Using your gifts to help other people. And never giving up, even when things get really, really hard." Kaya stepped forward and hugged him tightly. "Promise me you'll call your doctors today," she whispered. "Promise me you'll be brave." "I promise," MJ whispered back. "And you promise me you'll keep playing basketball, not just for yourself, but for your parents too. They would want you to chase your dreams." "I promise," Kaya said. As MJ walked toward the helicopter, he turned back one more time to look at the village that had become his sanctuary. Pine Creek looked tiny against the backdrop of the enormous mountains, but he knew it would forever hold a huge place in his heart. The helicopter lifted off, and MJ watched through the window as the village grew smaller below them, but something inside him felt bigger than it ever had before. 3 hours later, when they landed in Denver, MJ pulled out his phone and made the most important call of his life. "Dr. Peterson, this is Michael Jordan. I'm ready to schedule that. Heart surgery. And doctor, I'm not scared anymore." 3 months later, MJ stood in his doctor's office in Chicago, holding a phone to his ear. The surgery had gone perfectly, and his heart was stronger than ever. But the most important call he needed to make wasn't to reporters or business partners. "Kaya," he said, when she answered the phone in Pine Creek, "I wanted you to be the first to know. The doctors say my heart is completely healthy now. The surgery worked perfectly." "I knew it would," came Kaya's voice, stronger and more confident than it had been 6 months ago. "You're a champion, remember? Champions don't give up." "We both are champions," MJ replied with a smile. "How's your training going with Coach White?" "She's amazing," Kaya said excitedly. "She says I've improved more in 3 months than most. Kids do in 2 years. And guess what? The new basketball court is almost finished." MJ felt his heart swell with pride and joy. Even while recovering from surgery, he had made sure the construction in Pine Creek stayed on schedule. The David and Maria Memorial Court was going to be the most beautiful basketball facility in all of Montana. "I can't wait to see it," MJ said, "and to see how much you've grown." "When are you coming back?" Kaya asked. "Everyone in the village asks about you every day." "Soon," MJ promised. "Very soon." 2 weeks later, MJ's private jet touched down on the new landing strip that had been built near Pine Creek. Captain Martinez smiled as she turned off the engines. "Ready to go home?" she asked. MJ looked out the window at the mountains and forests he had grown to love. "More ready than I've ever been for anything." But nothing could have prepared him for what he saw when they drove into the village. Where the old broken basketball court used to be, there now stood the most beautiful sports complex anyone in Pine Creek had ever imagined. The David and Maria Memorial Court had indoor and outdoor courts with perfect hardwood floors, glass backboards, and nets that looked like they belonged in the NBA. But the most amazing thing wasn't the building. It was the people using it. 23 children from Pine Creek and the surrounding area were participating in the first official Jordan Foundation basketball camp. Kids of all ages and skill levels were learning from Coach Jennifer White and 2 other professional instructors. And there, in the middle of it all, was Kaya. She had grown taller in the months since MJ had seen her. Her movements were more confident, her shots more accurate. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They sparkled with life and joy and dreams. When she saw MJ walking toward the court, she broke into the biggest smile he had ever seen. "Michael!" she called out, running toward him. But she wasn't the sad, broken little girl he had left behind. This was a young athlete who knew exactly who she was and where she was going. "Look!" she said, pointing to a wall where dozens of college recruitment letters were displayed. Duke, Stanford, University of Connecticut, North Carolina. They're all interested in me, and I'm only 13. MJ shook his head in amazement. "Your parents would be so incredibly proud." "I know they are," Kaya said confidently. "I feel them with me every time I play." Coach White approached them, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Michael, you should know that Kaya is the most dedicated student I've ever worked with. She practices every day, studies her schoolwork religiously, and helps teach the younger kids too. She's a natural leader," added Coach Martinez, who had indeed started the flying service and was now bringing supplies and visitors to Pine Creek regularly. Dr. Blackwood walked over from where she had been watching her own 8-year-old son run practice free throws. "The whole village has changed since you were here," she told MJ. "The kids have hope now. The parents see possibilities they never imagined. And Kaya, she's become an inspiration to everyone." That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, MJ and Kaya sat together on the steps of the Memorial Court. The building was quiet now, but they could hear the echo of children's laughter from earlier in the day. "Can I tell you something?" Kaya asked. "Always," MJ replied. "Sometimes I still get sad about my parents. I still miss them terribly. But now when I feel that sadness, I also feel grateful." "Grateful for what?" "Grateful that they taught me to love basketball. Grateful that their love brought me to this moment. Grateful that losing them led me to finding you and Coach White and all these opportunities." Kaya pulled out the championship ring she still wore on a chain around her neck. "This ring reminds me every day that champions don't just win games. Champions turn their pain into purpose. MJ felt tears in his eyes. This 13-year-old girl had learned lessons about life that many adults never figured out. "Kaya," he said, "I need to tell you something important. When I first came here, I thought I was helping you, but you saved me in ways you'll probably never fully understand." "How?" "You showed me what real courage looks like. You taught me that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right even when you are scared. Because of you, I faced my surgery with confidence instead of fear." Kaya nodded thoughtfully. "My dad used to say that sometimes God puts people in our lives at exactly the right moment. Maybe your plane was supposed to crash here." "I think you're absolutely right," MJ said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars appear in the clear mountain sky. Then Kaya spoke again. "Michael, I've been thinking about something, about the promise I made to come back here after college and coach kids." "What about it?" "I don't just want to coach basketball. I want to start a program that helps kids who have lost their parents, like I did. I want to show them that they can still have dreams, still have hope." MJ smiled. Even at 13, Kaya was already thinking about how to help others. "That's a beautiful idea. What would you call this program?" "The David and Maria Foundation," she said without hesitation. "We could help kids all over the country who are dealing with loss. Basketball could be the tool we use to help them heal, just like it helped me." "I think that's the most wonderful idea I've ever heard," MJ said. "And I'd be honored to help you make it happen." As they prepared to go inside, Kaya had one more surprise. "There's something I want to show you," she said, leading him to a special display case inside the memorial court. Inside the case were dozens of photos, newspaper clippings, and letters, but in the center was something that took MJ's breath away: a framed picture of him and Kaya playing basketball. Under the stars on that first magical night. "Elena took this picture from her window," Kaya explained. "She said it captured the moment when both of us started to heal." Below the picture was a plaque that read, "Sometimes the most important victories happen in the smallest places. Sometimes a broken heart can become the strongest heart of all." MJ stared at the display, remembering that night when a scared man and a heartbroken girl had found exactly what they needed in each other. "Kaya," he said softly, "do you remember what I told you that first night? About how your story was just beginning?" "Yes. I was wrong about one thing. This isn't just your story anymore. It's our story, the village's story, and it's going to inspire thousands of other kids who need to know that they can overcome anything." Kaya smiled and took his hand. "Want to shoot some baskets under the stars, for old times' sake?" "I thought you'd never ask," MJ replied. As they walked onto the beautiful new court, MJ realized that the broken concrete slab where they had first played together had been preserved in a special section of the new facility. A small sign read, "Where dreams begin again." They shot baskets in the moonlight, just like they had 9 months earlier. But everything had changed. The scared man and the silent girl were gone, replaced by 2 champions who had learned that the greatest victories weren't won on scoreboards. They were won in the human heart. As Kaya made shot after perfect shot, MJ knew that her parents were indeed watching. And he knew they were proud not just of her basketball skills, but of the remarkable young woman she was becoming. Ready for the real adventure to begin? he asked as they finished practicing. "I've been ready my whole life," Kaya replied. "I just needed to remember how to believe in myself." As they walked back toward the village under the starlit sky, MJ smiled. The plane crash that had seemed like the end of everything had actually been the beginning of the most important story he would ever be part of. And the best chapters were still to come. 5 years had passed since that stormy night when MJ's plane crashed in Pine Creek. Now, 17-year-old Kaya stood on the beautiful basketball court that bore her parents' names, holding an acceptance letter that would change her life forever. "Duke University," she read aloud to the crowd of villagers who had gathered for her high school graduation. "Full scholarship for basketball and academics." The entire village erupted in cheers. Children who had been born after MJ's crash were now old enough to understand that they were witnessing history. The first person from Pine Creek was going to one of the best universities in America. MJ stood at the back of the crowd, tears of pride streaming down his face. The scared little girl who wouldn't speak had become a confident young woman who could accomplish anything she set her mind to. But Kaya had chosen Duke for a special reason that only MJ knew about. "Duke has the best program for what I want to study," she had told him during one of their monthly phone calls. "Sports psychology and child development. I want to understand how to help kids heal through athletics." After the graduation ceremony, Kaya found MJ near the memorial display case. "Are you ready?" she asked, pulling the championship ring from the chain around her neck. For 5 years, she had worn that ring as a reminder of dreams and promises. Now it was time to return it, just as they had agreed. "Actually," MJ said with a mysterious smile, "I have a different idea." He led her outside to where a special surprise was waiting. Parked in front of the basketball court was a brand-new bus with David and Maria Foundation painted on the side in beautiful letters. "What's this?" Kaya asked, though she was beginning to suspect. "Your mobile basketball program," MJ explained. "While you're at Duke, this bus will travel to schools across the country, bringing basketball training and counseling to kids who have lost parents or experienced trauma." Coach White stepped out from behind the bus, grinning widely. "I've agreed to run the program. While you're in college, we'll visit 10 schools each month, working with children who need hope, just like you did." Kaya's eyes filled with happy tears. "But how will I be involved if I'm at Duke?" "Every summer, you'll come home to Pine Creek and run a special camp for the kids we've worked with throughout the year," MJ explained. "You'll show them that someone who understands their pain can still achieve incredible things." Dr. Blackwood, now the program's medical director, joined them. "We've already identified 50 schools that want to participate. Word has spread about what happened here in Pine Creek, and everyone wants to be part of this story." Mayor Crow, Feather, now in his 70s but still energetic, walked over carrying a special gift. "This is from all of us," he said, handing Kaya a custom basketball. Instead of her father's name, this ball had something new written on it. Kaya Crow Feather. "Champion of Hearts, Pine Creek Forever. Every child in our program will receive one of these," Elena Crow Feather explained. "They'll know that someone believes in their dreams, even when they can't believe in themselves." As the celebration continued around them, MJ and Kaya walked to their special spot, the preserved section of the original broken court. "I have something to tell you," MJ said. "Something I've never told anyone else." Kaya sat down on the old concrete, curious. "The night before my plane crashed here, I had made a decision. I was going to retire from all my business activities. I was going to give up on everything because I was too scared to face my health problems. What changed your mind? You did. Watching you find the courage to live again after losing everything showed me that I had no excuse for giving up when I hadn't lost anything at all. MJ pulled out a small box from his pocket. This is why I want you to keep my championship ring. Inside the box was something even more precious, a new ring specially made just for Kaya. It had her initials engraved on one side and Champion of Life engraved on the other. This is your championship ring, MJ said, for winning the most important game of all, the game against despair. Kaya slipped the new ring onto her finger, then carefully placed MJ's original championship ring back in his palm. "Thank you for letting me borrow your courage until I found my own," she said. "Thank you for reminding me what courage really looks like," MJ replied. As the sun began to set behind the mountains, the entire village gathered for one final basketball game before Kaya left for college. 3 generations played together, elderly people who remembered when Pine Creek was just a forgotten mountain village, middle-aged parents who had watched their children's horizons expand, and young kids who now believed they could become anything they wanted. MJ and Kaya played on the same team, just like they had that first magical night. But now, they weren't a scared man and a broken girl. They were partners in the most important work of their lives, showing other people that healing was possible. As the game ended and people began to head home, Kaya made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I want you all to know that Pine Creek will always be my home. No matter how far I travel or what I accomplish, this is where my heart belongs. And someday, I'm coming back to coach right here on this court." "How long someday?" asked one of Daru's, the younger children. 4 years, Kaya said with certainty. 4 years to get my degree. Then I'm coming home to start the biggest program this village has ever seen. MJ smiled, knowing she meant every word. Later that evening, as Kaya packed for her journey to Duke, she found MJ sitting alone in the memorial court, looking at the photos and newspaper clippings that told their story. "Thinking about something?" she asked, sitting beside him. "Thinking about miracles," he said. 5 years ago, I thought my plane crash was the worst thing that could happen to me. Now I know it was the best thing that ever happened to either of us." "Do you really think it was a miracle?" Kaya asked. MJ looked around at the beautiful facility, thought about the dozens of children who had already been helped by their programs, and considered the thousands more who would benefit in the years to come. "I think," he said slowly, "that sometimes when we're lost, the universe conspires to put us exactly where we need to be, even if it takes a plane crash to get us there." Kaya nodded. "My dad used to say that everything happens for a reason, even when we can't see the reason at first." "Your dad was a wise man, and he raised an even wiser daughter." The next morning, as Kaya prepared to leave for Duke, the entire village gathered once more. But this wasn't a sad goodbye. This was a celebration of a young woman who was going out into the world to share the healing she had found. MJ handed her a special gift, a photo album filled with pictures from the past 5 years. The first photo showed a silent, heartbroken little girl. The last photo showed a confident young woman surrounded by children she had helped learn to love basketball. "For when you need to remember how far you've come," he said. "And for when other kids need to see what's possible," Kaya added. As her bus pulled away from Pine Creek, heading toward her college adventure, Kaya looked back one more time at the village that had raised her, the court where she had learned to dream. Again, and the man who had shown her that champions are made not by what they win, but by how they help others win, too. Through the bus window, she could see MJ standing on the basketball court, shooting baskets in the morning sunlight. But he wasn't alone. A new group of children had gathered around him, eager to learn, eager to believe in themselves. The cycle was continuing, just as it should. Kaya smiled and opened her laptop. She had a speech to write for her first presentation at Duke. A speech about a plane crash that changed 2 lives and started a movement that would help. Thousands of children discover that broken hearts could become the strongest hearts of all. Frieder The title of her speech was simple. Sometimes the most important victories happen in the smallest places. As Pine Creek disappeared behind the mountains, Kaya knew that her real journey was just beginning, and she couldn't wait to see where it would lead. Dr. Kaya Crow Feather stepped out of her car in front of the David and Maria Memorial Complex. The original basketball court had grown into a full campus that included dormitories, classrooms, a medical clinic, and training facilities that rivaled any professional sports center. But the most amazing thing wasn't the buildings. It was the people using them. Over 100 children from across the country were participating in the summer session of the David and Maria Foundation. Kids who had lost parents, survived trauma, or simply needed to believe in themselves were learning that basketball could be a bridge to healing. Dr. Crow Feather called a 10-year-old girl who had arrived just last week. "Watch this shot." The Doyce girl, who hadn't spoken for months after losing her father in a car accident, made a perfect free throw. Her smile was so bright it seemed to light up the entire court. "Beautiful!" Kaya called back. "Your father would be so proud." Michael Jordan, now in his 60s, but still moving like an athlete, walked over to join her. "How does it feel to be back home?" "Like I never left," Kaya said, looking around at the mountains that had shaped her entire life. "And like everything is just beginning." "Any regrets about turning down that coaching job with the WNBA?" Kaya shook her head. "This is where I belong. This is the work I was meant to do." She pointed to a new addition to the memorial display, a wall covered with photos of children who had gone through their program. Kids who had learned to smile again, to dream again, to believe in themselves again. "My parents wanted me to get a good education so I could help my community," she said. Mission accomplished. As the sun set behind the mountains, Kaya and MJ walked to their favorite spot, the preserved section of the original broken court where their story had begun. "Ready for another game of one-on-one?" MJ asked with a grin. "You know I'll beat you now," Kaya warned. "I'm not 12 anymore." "I'm counting on it," MJ replied. As they played basketball under the stars, just like they had 15 years earlier, children from the program gathered to watch. Some were healing from loss, others from trauma. All of them learning that their stories weren't ending. They were just beginning. In the distance, a plane flew overhead, its lights blinking against the dark sky. Kaya looked up and smiled, grateful for the night when a plane crash had become the first chapter of the most beautiful story she could have imagined. Sometimes the most important journeys begin with what looks like the end of everything. But as Kaya had learned in Pine Creek, endings are really just new beginnings in disguise. This emotionally engaging story delivers on every promise made in the title. showing how Michael Jordan's plane crash led to a transformation that changed not just his life and Kaya's, but created a legacy that helps thousands of children heal and dream again. What an incredible journey we've shared together, from a terrifying plane crash to a life-changing friendship. Michael Jordan and Kaya showed us that sometimes our worst moments can lead to our greatest victories. This story reminds us that kindness has the power to heal broken hearts and change entire communities. Just like MJ and Kaya helped each other find courage, we can all make a difference in someone's life. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and tell me which part of this story touched your heart the most. Are you from a small town like Pine Creek or a big city like Chicago? If this story inspired you to spread a little more kindness in the world, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. When we share stories like this, we help others remember that no matter how broken we feel, there's always hope for a beautiful tomorrow. And speaking of hope, don't miss the amazing story that's appearing on your screen right now. It's another incredible tale that will restore your faith in the power of human kindness. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most important victories really do happen in the smallest places. Keep spreading kindness wherever you go.